Good afternoon, Madam Chair, members of the board, members of the public, and staff. Just a few items for today. First, Vision Zero update is a reminder that the SFMTA will once again offer free rides home on New Year's Eve. So from 8 p.m. on New Year's Eve till 5 a.m. on New Year's Day, everybody can ride Muni for free. We do this, obviously, because we want to make sure that people are not driving when they are impaired. The fact from the California Office of Traffic Safety is that one person is killed in a drunk driving crash every 52 minutes in this country, and we certainly want to make sure that we don't have any such occurrences here in San Francisco. So OTS, the California Office of Traffic Safety, is funding the police department to be conducting driver DUI saturation patrols during the holiday season. Just another reason for folks to hop on a minibus rather than get behind the wheel. Vision Zero and SFMTA will be supporting the police department's anti-drunk driving efforts by amplifying social media posts on Facebook and Twitter. I want to make sure everybody gets the word out and gets notice that they should not be impaired behind the wheel anytime, and on New Year's Eve they can get behind the wheel, or I guess behind the driver of the wheel of the bus, of a minibus or train, and ride for free. With regard to Geary, a few months ago, you all approved the Phase 1 parking and traffic changes for the Geary BRT, which is the eastern half of the of the Geary line, going from about Stanyon to Market, so a big chunk of the core of the 38. Which is one of our highest ridership lines in the city, and just wanted to let you know that in the short time since you approved that, the near-term transit and safety treatments are just about complete, and that includes new transit-only lanes that have been installed between Stanyon and Blake and between Baker and Goff, and a number of intersections have been daylighted, and where we've added painted safety zones. You'll recall that Geary is not just a very important transit corridor, but it's also on the high injury network. So these safety improvements and transit improvements really advancing both our Vision Zero and transit first goals. So great quick progress there. I want to thank our staff from our various shops for getting out there and getting that work done so quickly. In terms of construction projects, I give you an update on something we've talked about before, which is that we are constructing a new platform on 3rd Street in front of the arena that is currently being built there. It will allow us to facilitate transit access and egress to the large numbers of folks who are going to be going to arena events, which you recall is not just the 40 or so basketball games a year, but numerous other concerts and events throughout the year. If I recall, it's more than 200 events a year anticipated at the new arena. So in order to facilitate people getting there and out by transit, we are replacing the two small separate platforms with one large platform, somewhat similar to the platform that we have in front of the AT&T ballpark. It's multiple phases of work. It's not just putting in the new platform, it's putting in new switches to give the trains flexibility, as well as some upgrades to the overhead wires and some underground utility work. So we had a previous phase that went longer than planned, and the next couple of phases are more significant. So to make sure that we have the planning completed and that we can finish within the work window that we're anticipating, we're pushing back the start of construction. We're originally planning on starting on January 4th. We will now be starting sometime in mid-January, and we expect the construction to go through the end of March, which means during that time we will have bus substitutions on for T3rd riders. As I mentioned before, a lot of lessons learned from the first time around, and we're working very closely with the contractor, the subcontractors, the Muni staff, our parking staff, everybody, to make sure that we can do this as smoothly as possibly with as minimal disruption, particularly to T-line riders, as possible. So we've been working a lot with also various stakeholders in the area to keep them apprised, and once we've nailed down a date, we'll make sure that everybody gets that information. It's good, important work. It will enable us to better serve not just that area, but the whole corridor because of the new switches that we're putting in, but it will create some disruption. We're doing our best to make sure that we manage that as well as possible. So some good news resulting from construction work is that in early 2019, we will be set to open up Stockton Street in Union Square, reopen it back up to Muni and other vehicles. This is the blocks from Geary to Market, which we closed what seems like many, many years ago as we started construction of the Central Subway Union Square Market Street station. While the station work continues, we have now closed up the openings, repaved the street, and in time for Winter Walk. And once Winter Walk is done after the holidays, we'll come back and do some striping and some other finish work and then reopen it to traffic. Initially, we will have the 8 Bayshore and the 91 Owl line run through, and soon thereafter the 30 and the 45, all of which now make this kind of big jog west around Union Square. So this will return them to the straight shot through the Stockton Tunnel, right down to Market, and then down Fourth. So it'll be a big time savings for people who ride those lines. So it's, and we do have an item, I think it might be on the consent calendar, to just restore the transit-only lane that was there. So great news there. And then finally, one other good piece of good news. We learned earlier this week, or maybe last week, that National Geographic has named San Francisco as one of the top 10 cities in the world for getting around by bicycle. When judged by infrastructure such as bike lanes, bike share systems, airport accessibility, friendliness from both drivers and pedestrians, and visual appeal, San Francisco was the only U.S. city to make this list of best cycling values. I don't believe this is anything that we applied for, so this isn't something that we sought out, but I guess the folks who work at National Geographic did some sort of survey across the world. The report noted San Francisco for its iconic views, history, culture, and famously difficult hills. We are joined in the top 10 by Amsterdam, Berlin, Buenos Aires, Copenhagen, a Slovenian city that I can't pronounce, Montreal, Paris, Rio de Janeiro, and Tokyo. The only other American city noted was Tucson, which received an honorable mention. I'm sure that some of our friends in Portland and Seattle are scratching their heads a little bit, but we'll take it. And I do want to commend our Sustainable Streets Division for their continued work to make biking a safer and easier way to get around. And we want to thank you all for all of the bike improvements that you all have legislated, including a lot just in recent months, some of which we'll start seeing going in the ground within the next couple of months. So good news there, and that concludes my report.
Thank you, Mr. Riskin. I do want to ask, with our first shutdown of the T3rd, when we had that first weekend of work, what was our feedback from customers? I know this was a much smaller shutdown than ones we've recently experienced with the Twin Peak tunnels, but did we manage to provide service that had our customers less inconvenience?
From my understanding, the feedback during the planned portion of the shutdown was pretty good. Everybody knew it was coming. We had lots of signage, ambassadors. We had good service, and so I think we had 2 different weekends of work. Both of those seemed okay, but the second weekend we were unable to restore service on Monday morning. We didn't restore, I think, until Wednesday morning. So those 2 days of unplanned service shutdown on Monday and Tuesday, folks weren't too pleased with that. We did do a lot of work, again, with signage and ambassadors to try to mitigate as well as possible. So I don't think folks were as critical of what we did to address what was an unforeseen closure. But they very much appreciate the notice. And I think the general feedback we get from folks is that they're understanding of the need to do these closures for various construction work, whether it's state of good repair or enhancement. The unplanned nature of the work, I think, is very frustrating for folks. So that's why, in part, we're taking the extra time now to make sure that whatever we tell the folks about this next closure is something that we can commit to with a much higher level of confidence.
Yes, go ahead, Director Burton.
I thought the issue was related to flooding and rain in the last, was that,
There were numerous issues. There were issues with the cure time for the concrete, the delivery of the concrete, the time to form the rebar, which is the steel inside the concrete. There were some issues of not having enough people on some of the overnights to actually do the work, and there was rain. So we had a confluence of issues, that kind of a perfect storm that came together to extend out the work. Some of them were preventable. Obviously, the rain is not, but we need to plan for rain when we do work this time of year. So again, a lot of lessons learned from both the things that happened, but also from the communications and notifications that we were making to make sure that the next and any subsequent shutdown, not just on this project, but any other, that doesn't fall victim to the same issues.
so we think we have the adequate mitigations for the rain, because obviously this is the rainiest season we're going to be entering into.
Yeah, absolutely. So they'll be working in January, February, March. So there's potential for rain. So there's a number of things that we're doing, including some schedule contingency, to make sure that, when the rain comes, it won't force us to extend beyond the duration that we tell the public.
And then for the operators who usually are doing the trains, are they then redirected to buses? I mean, how does
Right.
that work with this? So that does work that way with
Yeah.
the staffing. But don't the trains carry more people, so do we then have to staff more people because we have to have more buses?
We do, yeah.
And so we have that all worked out, because I know we in generally don't have the staffing that we need.
Yeah, we do. So we have a service plan, and because the train service is in pretty good shape these days in terms of operator availability, we have the bodies available with a few other adjustments to be able to meet the service without adversely impacting other service. We do anticipate, as we did during the weekend shutdowns, not running E-line service because it complicates the issues, and it also helps free up operators to run the rest of the service. But with that and maybe one or few other small changes, and we should have a finalized plan this week, we believe we can resource this without adverse impact to the rest of the system.
I guess just make sure we really make sure we reach out to the supervisors that have that.
We've been in constant
Yeah,
communication with both outgoing and incoming supervisors.
Great, thanks.
Good. Thank you, Director Burton. Good points to bring up. One more question on Stockton Street. I'm sure the merchants in the area are going to be shocked to have the disruption over, because that's been a huge construction project and it's been impacting that street for a while. And as much as they love the winter walk, I'm sure they're going to be happy to have the street back. And I see we have Mr. Ho here from Central Subway. Where did I see you? Oh, there you are. And I know that we've done good work working with the merchants and trying to make it as painless as possible. As that street opens up again, can you remind us, have we added sort of street amenities to it? Do we have wider sidewalks than we used to? Do we have, how is the street different than it used to be for everybody who's been both impacted by the shutdown and also enjoying the winter walk aspect of the street?
Yeah, I don't think that the basic geometry of the street has changed very much. All of the sidewalks are new because they were all torn up, and
Right.
all of the street is new. So all the kind of basic infrastructure is being upgraded, both below the ground and at the surface. We'll be putting in, I believe, new street lights and new poles for the overhead wires. So all the infrastructure is new. Should you choose to, we'll be kind of re-legislating the transit lane. Other than that, the street will be fairly similar to how it was before.